Okay, if not, so Supriya, can you comment outcomes from yesterday?
Okay, good morning, everybody. So in terms of the two sessions yesterday, one focused on people and the other on training and tools. So we had a wonderful presentation from Maria on behalf of the ABS. And I think we're all very interested in learning more about how Australia, A, secured funding, and B, then developed and implemented what sounds like an academy with real purpose, and one that I think we all would have an interest in terms of data literacy and improving that across the board. So be interesting. I think one of the takeaways is that we do want to understand more what the investment was, how they sort of convinced other organizations and sort of the enterprise to invest in that, and then also see them as the leaders in terms of ensuring that there was solid data literacy, and an understanding and appreciation for the role that data plays. And then we had a wonderful presentation from Macedonia, our colleagues who are not there. But I think what was a key takeaway from that was that they appeared to have quite a different experience from what we were hearing as the norm with respect to moving to a virtual operation during the pandemic. And so whether that was as a result of how they were leveraging the tools, I think they were suggesting that turning on video is, something they needed to encourage more, or whether that was a product of culture or just the way that they were, how their processes and how they were sort of organized contributed to that. I think that would be interesting to explore a little bit further, because there is probably some value in maintaining the ability to pivot towards a remote operation, even if it isn't your preferred model. I think we can all agree that the pandemic has taught us that we need to be future-proofing a little bit more and thinking ahead so that we have a workforce who's equipped and able to be agile and pivot towards dramatic shifts and changes. It seems like the changes keep on coming, so that's a guarantee. I always find it interesting when people say, we're in a real time of change. And I always wonder, when are we not? Like, if anything changes what is normal, when there's no change, I think you got to wonder what's coming. So that was that portion. Could pause there for a moment in case there's any additional key takeaways or thoughts or comments with respect to that portion of the day.
Sorry. So do you think one of the things we discussed within our group, the UN, sorry, I'll slow down. One of the things that we discussed as part of the working group on the future of work at one point was almost like a maturity model, so that, say, people who are, or countries that are earlier on in the process of change can learn from the countries that are more mature, but not making a maturity model of Ireland is here and Canada is way up there, but maybe a description of the circumstances of somebody of an NSI that's quite, at the lower end of mature to one that's at the top. I know it's quite a complicated question, sorry, but do you think it would be useful to kind of share it, but to maybe gather the information in that structure?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in doing that type of an assessment, and then looking at that maturity model and considering what types of toolkits or what types of information could be readily available for those organizations that assess themselves to be at varying degrees along that maturity model. And I think it goes to what I was saying earlier, but you've made a concrete recommendation, so I appreciate that, which is about that future proofing. I also am responsible for sort of the security context. And in that, we talk a lot about business continuity planning, of course. And this is part of that. It's not going to be the same. Well, I hope it's not another pandemic. But there's the potential for anything that could disrupt your business at any given time. And the people clearly most affected by that are the workers, right? Your workforce. And then, we're here in service to our countries and to our citizens. And so clearly that's, top of mind in terms of being able to have continuity in that. So I think those things go hand in hand, and a maturity model to help you sort of go, okay, what have we been considering? Where are we in terms of being able to respond to those considerations, and then learning from one another where we've got, gaps in that, I think could be of a lot of value. And I think would be a great concrete next step to support organizations at varying degrees of readiness, and even incorporating potential scenarios from a continuity standpoint. Continuity is normally specific to emergency. And I think we're beyond, we're not talking about just that. It's not what do you do, in the first 48 hours. I'm simply using it as an example, but more in that long term, because clearly some things last for 2.5 years. Okay, any other comments on that portion? So for the second portion of the day, we had a wonderful presentation from the OECD and my colleague at Statistics Canada, in looking at the Meta Academy approach, and a potential, supplier, I think is to put it loosely, in terms of, providing in a not-for-profit fashion, support across the board. And it sounds like the cost is quite nominal in terms of having access for train the trainer content and tools, which in turn enables an organization to customize and, direct the training that they wish to pursue, while also having access and leveraging other materials. I think that is something that we absolutely should look into more, so that there is information readily available to organizations, at least reference material, and then also being able to tap into the experiences our colleagues are having with carpentries. So I think there's a lot more to explore there. It seemed like there was absolutely potential interest in, considering that, whether that's for statistical training, but it sounds like it could even be a little bit wider scope to a certain degree, to enable those working in NSOs. So that was very good. I just want to make sure I didn't have another note about that. Oh, and Eric did comment, Mr. Anwar, on the idea that they are pursuing a pilot approach. So I think we would want to hear back on the outcome of that pilot, and any feedback. We'd ask some questions around the fact that it's I suppose a private entity, although stemming from academia. Were there sort of issues in terms of that procurement and that sort of thing, and tapping into this one sort of resource, not wanting to get locked in case we didn't see value. So the pilot is I'm glad they're pursuing that. So I think we should look forward to learning from that, and having them come back and talk to us about it a little bit more once that's done. Okay. And then Pamela, on the same theme, of course, presented from Ireland around the training that they've been conducting and the skills register, and the substantial impact that it had in terms of appreciation for having the tools and the training required to be able to conduct, the work of the organization. Like a 15% hike in, employee responses to the survey question on this, I think is really impressive. And then the idea of leveraging that as a way to prioritize access for training, which is incentivizing you in turn to, I know yesterday I only called out the idea of pitting them against each other, but in fact, you did give some other suggestions in terms of approach taken, which included, this is how you develop that learning plan for yourself individually, and then equally gain access to the training that you need, which is great. I think a lot of people could say, oh, if that's my gateway to training, then clearly I should be participating, sharing what skills I already possess, being clear about where my gaps are, having transparent conversations with my manager, and no one is going to, just move me around without my permission or approval. So that was excellent. And I think you noted as well that you were using GSPPM as a framework for laying out those skills. And just to tie it to Fabrizio's comments earlier and how they're framing, ethics. I think there's a lot to be said about framing both of these things in that context. It's something that I think we all agree, the GSPPM is excellent. It's clear. It's been articulated and it's widely accepted. So using that as a frame creates that consistency, I think, across the board, and it can be a frame for a number of other things. So find that very, very interesting and a great takeaway that we should, I think, when pursuing people management policy strategies and approaches and NSOs, we should all be more frequently considering the GSPPM for a frame for that in GAMSO. And then we also heard from Dominika at Stats Poland on the journey that they've been on towards modernization. And I loved how you showed the video and then said, now let me tell you what's really going on. Because we all, have the same sort of circumstance in that, you got to come to a moment where you go, okay, we did what we were aiming for. Yes, but that doesn't mean that it's the end of the journey. In fact, often it's really now a framework for the journey ahead. So I congratulate Stats Poland on the work you've been doing. And I think it's a journey that we all appreciate because we've been there or are still there or are heading there. But the relevancy of NSOs is extremely, extremely important to maintain. Data is a currency and sources of truth couldn't be more important and more crucial in an age of misinformation and false facts. So knowing that you can rely on your public institutions to give you sources of truth is really, really critical. And so that means we do need to modernize and we do need to be relevant and we do need our communities and our citizens to agree and to buy into it and to feel that way as well and to leverage us and believe in it. So that modernization journey, anxious to hear more. I think you had some really interesting takeaways in terms of having some preconceived notions and the fact that we all could benefit from being very open to outside reviews or outside, assessments of where we are. And that in fact, it can really open your eyes to things that were potentially blind spots. So, and some work for you guys to pursue, looking at leaning your processes. The fact that you're doing it now, I think would be great to hear more about the outcomes of some of those leaning efforts and some of the impact towards your workforce or people management policies as a result. Whether that's recruitment strategies, if they've shifted or not, whether that's simply finding efficiencies towards reallocation, and how did you reallocate to the benefit of the workforce and the mandate of your organization, I think would be a great thing to hear more about. In some instances, even if you're starting at a different place or later or sooner than some of our respective countries, regardless, I think we'll all learn something from that because there's always a different take on it. And you may leapfrog, some organizations as a result. So anyway, so please come back and tell us more about it. I think we could all benefit and learn from it. So that's in summary, I think some good takeaways. And please, if there's any other additional takeaways or comments on the latter portion of the day, don't hesitate. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Supriya. I've got just one suggestion, Take, but I'm not sure if it is possible because during the November workshop, it will be longer presentation about results from MITA Academy. would it be possible for us to have access to online, just to listen this? Because yesterday it was just, I don't know, 20 minutes or something, but I think that during the November workshop it will be half a day, so
Yeah.
it should be useful for us.
Yeah, so on was it 24th
Yes.
of November, there will be a seminar, and we most likely will be able to have WebEx or Zoom or Teams remote connection, because there's also the idea is that it will be online, but technically we have to check. Things change in the UN, so we suddenly might have to pay for it, and we don't have any funds for it. So we'll have to figure things out and fight a bit internally. But the whole idea was that indeed the HDMOS is for everybody that works in the group, but the seminars are for a much broader audience. So if we will not have a remote connection, it would miss its whole purpose for a large extent. So we'll definitely try, and we will share it with all our participants here, and also everybody that is engaged in our work, the connection links. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Maybe some comments, some suggestions, proposals at that moment. Okay, so if not, Maria.
Well, actually, just before moving on to the next slot, I don't have a suggestion or a proposal, but I do have a question. Yesterday, in terms of the how we build for the future, we looked at those 3 dimensions that have just been presented on there, the people, the training and skills, and the organization, ethics and culture. Are we missing something? Is there a gap across that spectrum of perspectives on how we as the HR community build our NSIs for the future? What is there a dimension that we haven't considered? Or do those people dimensions, the organization, the culture, the ethics dimensions, and the skills and training dimensions, do they cover everything? Or is there something else we should be looking at? I'm interested to understand, because we're not just here to exchange experiences, we're also here to build and reinforce the quality of one another's work. So have we missed something? Fabrizio, I can see you have the mic ready to go.
That's mine. Okay, absolutely. I think that a very complex situation, considering a lot of different factors. I think also communication, of course, is absolutely important. The flow of the information across from the top management to the employees and vice versa. It's absolutely necessary, because it's not only a technical problem, for example, an ICT problem. It's something that pertains to the organizational culture. Also, the way to report the information to the top manager and vice versa. It's absolutely important. It's a dimension of ethics, but it's also a dimension of organizational model. I think that communication, in the sense of organizational values, there should be more improved. It's, of course, in my opinion.
Thank you very much, Fabrizio. I would have to say, I do agree very much with that. And I'm sure we do all have internal communications functions, but it's one of the persistent areas we find in our internal staff surveys. There's never enough internal communication.
Yes.
Never. No matter how much you think you're doing, the staff in general seem to persistently feel there's a gap in the flow of information down to them from the more senior management layers, and there's a block in the flow of information from them up to the more senior management layers. So while I don't think it's necessarily core to the work of the HRMT per se, it's definitely a Capcom, a broader Capcom consideration. And we're all interconnected in the Capcom. So I think it's a super, super point, Fabrizio. And maybe for the later session where we're talking about work that we're going to do moving forward, it's an item of consideration. So thank you so much for raising that. Anybody else want to comment?
Yeah, I mean, indeed, building up on what Fabrizio said, I think it's not a disconnect, but it's a bit two different worlds. You have the methodologies, the statistical production, and you have HR, and communication is somewhere in between, but it's also more separate in most cases, unless it's really dissemination. So yeah, it's difficult to to make one world of it. So now they see, oh, HR in our office, it's even much stronger than in most discal offices. It's really a different world, and it's seen as well. What are they bothering us with? And we always have to comply with this, but what do we get back from them? So I think the disconnect, how to better integrate the HR as being part of the production rather than two different things. So it's maybe the GAMSO and GSBPM. GAMSO includes GSBPM, but it's not seen as that it is included in it maybe by a lot of people. And to a large extent, it's about communication, but maybe also have staff with different experiences in HR with a background in statistics and the reverse, maybe more exchange. That is maybe, yeah, that's a good example. For example, yeah. It helps because they have different insights. Yeah.
Thank you, Taike.
Oh, Maria, one other, I think, dimension to perhaps explore is, I think, leveraging analytics better to measure impacts on the workforce. So I think it's like it is woven in, but I'm just floating the idea of it potentially becoming its own, I don't know, theme or element. So, we're spending a lot of effort on, leveraging analytics to dig deeper into impacts on our workforce, how policies are affecting them, or approaches or circumstances, and then using that as a way to understand how to improve their, wellness, organizational health overall. So anyway, I just wondered, how we would want to incorporate that maybe more specifically in some of what we're pursuing. Being NSOs, I think we all agree that data should be a driver for a lot of how we direct our efforts. So anyway, just wanted to float that as well.
That sounds like a wonderful idea, Supriya. It also sounds very difficult. So it's definitely the type of activity I think that could benefit from collaboration and exchange of ideas and best practices. So yeah, definitely. And we love data, and our people above all else love data. Sometimes when the words do not communicate effectively, the data does it much better. So yeah, couldn't agree with you more. So folks, you'll be glad to know I'm not just about to kill you with PowerPoint. I think although we've had some fantastic presentations and we still have a couple of really great ones to come, there is only so much of PowerPoint that any of us can take. And actually, I'm not planning to speak to you, and I'll be very brief, by the way, this morning, but I'm not planning to speak to you about something that we have done. I'm planning to speak to you about something that I'm wondering, would we like to do collaboratively? So in a way, this is a tentative pitch or a marketing effort. And the topic that I want to talk to you about is the idea of potentially beginning an activity for next year to focus on developing an NSI international brand or a transnational brand that we might use as part of our recruitment initiatives. And the genesis for this idea comes from the work of the Future of Work subgroup of the Capcom, where we have been grappling with the challenge of attracting and retaining the right type of talent, something that we spoke about already quite extensively on Tuesday. I think we all know that while it impacts us in varying ways and at varying levels, lack of flexibility around remuneration has increasingly become a challenge to retaining the types of highly sought after data skills that we need in our organizations, but many of our private sector and indeed public sector competitors need as well. So in an attempt to try to identify the very particular or unique characteristics of working in official statistics that may appeal to the public good spirit of people and may draw them to work for us rather than in a commercial venture, or even rather than to work in maybe policy-making departments, to work with the data, to use the data for the common good. And we wondered whether there might be an opportunity also to draw on the fact that quite uniquely from a civil and public service perspective, our community is completely international. That's not necessarily the case in terms of policies in respect of social or economic development in our countries, where the policies can tend to be extremely geo-specific and specific to the nature and profile of our economies or our societies. But as official statisticians, we share very common objectives, a core set of common values, and great opportunities such as this to come together as an international community for exchanges of views, exchanges of experience. And we do have, to some extent, a tradition of exchanging talent as well through secondment or study trip type approaches. So there was a question that emerged from our subgroup, whether there's an opportunity to draw, on the one hand, the branding development work that we're going to hear about a little bit later this morning under the CAPCOM task team structure, and the future of work reaching youth work strand in particular, to focus on developing an international brand for our community of national statistical institutions that we could use as part of marketing ourselves when we go out to recruit, in particular, I would suggest at the graduate entry level, but in fact, in general, to assist and bolster our recruitment campaigns across all levels, professional and technical and general service grades. So I just wanted to, as I had you all in the room, captive audience, to throw the idea out there and to canvass preliminary feelings about whether this is applicable or relevant to your domestic situation, and whether you feel such an activity would be something you might be prepared to contribute to in the course of 2023.
Okay.
Obviously, marketing isn't my strong suit.
And don't be shy.
We can do a round room, start with this table and the next table. So put them on the block.
Negative views are as welcome as positive, because we are in anticipation of trying to put together a proposal for the November meeting. And if it isn't something that people feel has relevance or resonance, then there's absolutely no point in taking time in November or actually consuming energy now to try to begin to put a proposal together. And I'm a big girl, I won't cry if you don't like the idea.
Well, is maybe any country that is currently having issues with getting staff into their office, and are you planning then to address it? And is this maybe a platform which can help you to address it?
Yes, hello, Karen Blaze again from the OECD. Well, we're not going to be able, I mean, we'll be very glad to contribute. We're not an NSI, but the OECD would be very glad to participate in this and to contribute where it would be helpful and benefit from this as well. Thank you.
I'll pay you later. Thanks, Karen.
Good morning. I don't know. I think I have the same feeling with this idea that we had with EMOS. You know, the EMOS program, because when it started, it was kind of the same feeling, perception to brand a program to, you know, attract also students to come into that program. But then we had some issues regarding the faculty, regarding the professors in the EMOS, regarding our organization, and everything fell apart a bit, you know. So I'm just in my thoughts, I'm just thinking, if this is like the same idea as EMOS, just to put a marketing brand on something, and then the problems will start actually. Not no, this is just my experience, please. Okay, so this is just like with EMOS in our country. So that's what I'm figuring out.
And I think it's very important that we do learn from past experience, Tina, and most emphatically, putting a pretty brand on something which purports to be an offer but has no substance behind it, is a recipe for failure, because you know people see through your brand very quickly when there's no substance. So I think it's a really good point. It's only worth doing if we believe that we have a sufficient number of common characteristics or common opportunities that can give a bit of substance to saying, well, we're members of an international community and that membership gives you access to X, whatever X would be. And that's what this group would need to identify if it got off the ground. So thank you, Tina.
So just to give some feedback from the survey that we did of the 42 countries, 41, nobody said that they had a recruitment problem. Yet when it came to turnover, they kept saying that people were leaving because for better salaries. But then, you know, when people did their exit interviews, you know, salary was just one of the components. So that tells me that there is plenty of room to develop this area to, you know, really highlight the real advantages to working in an NSI, leaving salary aside. Also, I think one of the things that came out of it as well would be the benefit of having, you know, marketing that really focuses on the different generations. So, you know, for Generation Z, it's different to Generation X or Y. But when I was presenting with private sector companies at a kind of a graduate forum, the company who went on before me were spending 15 billion on research and development. And I thought, how am I going to sell the CSO? Because we don't have 15 million, let alone 15 billion. So I just said to the people, do you like data? We have 8,000 data sets that you can access. So I think there are lots of things that people would appeal to people about working in NSIs. And I think that's common across all of the countries. So I think there is value in pursuing this and in having, you know, a set of guidelines and a set of strategies that we can all use. Thanks.
Thanks, Pamela.
Yeah, maybe also to add for those who are not active, haven't been active in our activities. So the idea is not that if you're an activity is set up or a project is set up and that you join and you have to do what is decided there. You are part of who decides what will be done. So it's jointly deciding what we need and what the output will be that is useful for those who are participating in these activities. So it's not that you join up in something that others have decided what you will be doing. No, you decide what you need in your office and then jointly develop something. So it's maybe a bit comparable to the value of statistics activities there were and the fundamental principles campaigns we had. So it's having a common way of positioning yourself in your countries to recruit new staff. And since we all have the same value proposition in our countries, it can be done in the same way. So it's easier if you jointly develop it than individually have to do it. And then you also have the advantage that you can use each other's material, but also that you can give an opportunity to your staff or to your potential staff to say, well, look, you can also work in another country because they have the same, you might have some language issues, but except for that, there's also even opportunities for international exchange. So it might even be a stronger buy-in for getting staff because they not only have a national career path, but also an international career path.
Thanks, Taike. So I'm going to leave the subject hanging, floating above the room while we move on through the remainder of the agenda. Both Pamela and myself, as members of the Future of Work subgroup, are completely available to you if anybody wants to follow up after the session here today. At any time. We're always looking for new volunteers to get involved in general with the Future of Work group. But if you have a particular interest in this topic, we'd really appreciate hearing from you as quickly as possible so that we can concretize a proposal for the November workshop. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Maria. So now I think it's my turn and Aideen. I hope that she's together with us. Okay, so maybe before I start my presentation, because Aiden is not there. Okay, thank you, Maria. So maybe just one comment to the previous subject, and I would like Maria to ask you to share also your experience when I think that it was CES in June, and there were a small discussion, let's say, because we are talking here how to reach the youth, but also as a data provider, as a people who how to attract the data for the young, and at the end how to attract the young to work in our NSOs. And I remember that somebody that was nice comment that we need to start from the very beginning when pupils or students are coming to our offices to find out more about our work, and as a students to practice our work. We can't give them boring tasks, yes, because when after some time when they will be on the market, they think about statistics as a boring issue, yes. So that I think that was also the good idea, that we should start from the very beginning, maybe even from the kindergarten, yeah.
Definitely, and I know that we've invested quite a lot over recent years in reaching out to the younger cohorts in ways that appeal to them, through running competitions, making very interesting interactive learning resources available to them for use by teachers in the classroom, attending events where young people gather and giving them access to our data, showing them how easy it is even through the internet to access our data so that they can play with it. So we find that beneficial. I suppose there is a transition point, Anna, where there's a seriousness to the work that we do, and it's important not to lose sight of that. But incentivizing young people by speaking to them in a language that they understand, or having products that are fun and interesting for them to use, I think is a very worthwhile investment, because coming to them when they're in their early or mid-20s at the end of their education, and only then trying to interest them in official statistics, is a bit late. So absolutely, I would agree. We need to be right in there in the cradle.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I don't know. Okay. So maybe one more comment about the branding, marketing, and things like this. I think that when we join the efforts, maybe we will be more visible to all at national level, but also on the international level, because my point of view in our country is that we are just invisible. Yes, we do our work, the data are running, but well, we are not perceived as a very important government authority, and that's why we have, for example, problems with money. Yes, and we can't compete with other ministries, not telling about private sector. Yes, so I think that that this concept that was presented by Maria to follow our work in the area of brand and marketing and connected with communication, as Fabrizio said, it should be run next year. This is my opinion. Okay, so I try to start my okay, so go ahead, Tina. Yes.
Can I just add something, please? Just from my experience, is no obligatory view, but when we were considering also this kind of topics at our office, and then we started a new department like for social media and how to attain, how to attract those generations, those young people and things like that. And you know, then we employed some new people who were good at this kind of stuff, and they started these Twitter profiles, Pinterest, LinkedIn, some new profiles. They put some animations up there, some pictures, nice pictures. But then then it struck me when people start coming in for interviews and I talk to them like, okay. And they actually thought we're like a social media company, and they were, yeah, I know how to do social media. Yeah, I can do some tweets. I can post. I can Photoshop pictures. No, you're here to work with Python, SAS, Excel, those big databases and things like that. And they were just looking at me, and it kind of gave the wrong perception. It gave the wrong perception what we're actually doing. And also with that kind of games and like instant stimuli to try to attract people, it kind of, in my opinion, gave the wrong message. So I don't know what we want to be like. An official statistical office, we want to be more like an expert academic office or institution who has some top people regarding statistics doing that, cooperating with faculties, going directly to the faculties, trying to talk to the professors, to try to onboard new people, new students and things like that, or just post some flicks on the social media and attract those young people who are, whose attention span is like 5 seconds, and they think they can take over the world. I don't know. This is just my. So we must be really careful balancing those things.
Yeah, thank you, Tina. It's true, but there is also another side that, in my opinion, people who are coming to our offices are very often disappointed. Yeah, because the description given in the offer was very at the high level, let's say. Yes, we are really good in describing and exaggerating what we are doing, and after some time, people are simply disappointed that also not only because of money, but they are also because of this they are leaving our offices. So
exactly. Sorry, Maria. Just to follow up on Anna. Okay, exactly. And that's where the good old honesty comes in. I tell to everybody, we must be honest as an employer to put out our prescriptions, what we need, what we want. And also it's like the same as they send us their CVs. Everybody just is stopping everything, and it's the same then after 3 months. Yeah, he's a programmer. You actually see he doesn't know it. And it's the same with us as an employer. We also must be honest about what will they doing, or what will they be doing. And yeah, maybe sometimes it's a bit boring, and after I don't know how many years they can move on and things like that. So we also got to be honest, not just flash things, and then yeah, like you said, they just to attract them, and then after 1 year they're disappointed. Yeah, so good old honesty,
Maria.
Thanks, Tina, and thanks, Anna. I agree with you both. It's definitely important, Tina, not to lose sight of the professionalism and the exacting technical quality standards that we bring to our work, and that must never change. So I would agree with that. But I agree with you, Anna, that there is sometimes a risk that we oversell how sexy the work is when an amount of the work is routine and repetitive and potentially boring. And I'm very conscious not to misrepresent here. I do recall at the CES in Geneva, I think it was Anil, actually, Manon and Supriya, who said that you have to give, in particular, the newer, the younger recruits who have a lot of maybe wild ideas for things that could be done. You have to give them some aspect of a sandbox or a playpen where they can take ridiculous risks, because if you never take ridiculous risks, you risk missing out on phenomenal breakthroughs. But obviously, as serious professional and technical organizations, the risk needs to be contained inside a bunker so that if the bomb detonates, it won't blow up the whole house. So I think Anil said, and I'm sure Manon and Supriya, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, that you do have structures in your organization, as an example, where some of the kind of more thrusting dynamic, and I don't want to be ageist about this because it's not just chronologically young, but it could be young in the organization. So newer people who have come in with completely different experiences, who hit on some bright ideas for statistical work or research they'd like to do, that you do give them a playpen, that a proportion of time can be allocated to allow that type of radical innovation, because you're a very innovative organization. And that you're trying to build that into the fabric of how you work. So it's an attempt maybe to balance the overselling of how wild and sexy we are with the imperative to continue pursuing the routine, the repetitive, the highly organized, structured, quality controlled statistical production. I suspect the marketing blurb may be shinier than the reality, but maybe you could speak to it, Supriya.
Yeah, there are definitely instances where we've oversold and people came in and went, oh God, this is so boring. We had a few years ago, we really decided to flip the switch on our student recruitment strategies. And we put a very specific focused effort into it. And some of the stuff was very basic. Okay. One of them was you're going to be onboarded in 3 weeks. So from the time we talk to you to the time you're going to start with us, knowing that those contracts are, shorter because they're still in their, educational, pursuing their educational programs, we're going to get you onboarded fast. You're going to have a specific role, and some of it will be exciting and some of it will be very boring, but you're going to learn about our organization. But alongside that, we created what's called it used to be called the Youth Professional Network, and now it's called the Stackhand Professional Network, because we eliminated the ageist youth word, knowing that we had, new professionals in the organization. So Stackhand Professional Network. And so this network got a place at the table. And we elevated them so that they would have opportunities to come and speak with the senior leadership. We gave them a champion, so an executive champion, who then convened with them regularly and gave them a forum and a platform to really come forward with innovative ideas, to talk about the work that they were each doing in their respective units across the agency, bring forward ideas, and then have guidance in terms of how to bring those ideas into, a structured way with tangible potential deliverables, look at what from a resource standpoint that would actually take, and then present that to us. And some of those ideas were pursued as a result. So absolutely, like that was the sandbox, I think, that he's describing. And by having that executive champion, it really helped guide them in a focused way, while still enabling them to pursue the work that we brought them on board to do. That network continues to this day, and they are fantastic. They come up with really cool ideas. They've, kicked off hackathons where you take an issue of the day and they hack away at it, by having a whole bunch of data sets to play around with. But we do it in a structured way, in a secure environment where it doesn't risk our bread and butter, our daily business, but it does allow us to tap into cool ideas and solutions, and it gives them a forum to participate. So that's been really effective. And the 3-week thing with onboarding is no joke. Like, it means a lot. Okay, I'm in, I'm getting paid, they care, I'm here, I have good orientation, I've got a mentor, I've got a champion. And we've had a really high success rate with, we call it bridging, where it's a fast-tracked way of employing them into recruitment programs within the organization. So it's been a great, we've eliminated some of our recruitment campaigns just by virtue of being able to tap into the student network that we were bringing on board. So, and it's honestly, it works really, really well. I mean, still some things to learn. I'm sure they would say that there's still some really boring stuff, but you know what, guys, like, there's boring parts of all of our jobs. That's my answer to that.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, Antonio?
Yes, good morning. Well, actually, I would report you a specific case for Italy that is quite different from the things I'm listening to now, because well, we some months ago, a few months ago, we tried to recruit some people, and we didn't try to be sexy on the our advice. It was just we need 100 people, okay, 100 people, and there were 17,000 applicants for that. So even if we didn't try to be sexy, we had a great, a huge response from the market. So it was also because I was a little bit doubt about the recruitment platform, because I can see, given this context, how it could work for Italy, for our institute. So there, how can I say? There are different cases, different situations we have to take into account. And this is a peculiar one, I think, because, well, there was no specific competencies required, just 100 positions. And there was that response.
If I can add another aspect of this problem. What about we can do for attractive young people, young student? We try to enter in the school to the children in order to promote games with statistics, animation, story on statistics, etc. Also in the superior school, of course, we propose some activities, and then to the university with the tool of the internship, with the EMOS in particular channel. But so there are different activities in order to attract young people. Also, we prepare festival of the statistics, championships of the statistics, the day of the research, the night of the research, and so on. But at the end, when the student come in our institute for a short period, for an internship, they want immediately to put their hand on the data. I want the data, the macro data, what do you want? And they consider it very boring, the process behind the data, when you have to catch the data, to control, to check, to clean the data, to organize. This part of process they don't want, they don't imagine there is so much work before the data, because they are used to have every day with social media, a lot of data of always ready. So they don't understand how much difficulty is to prepare the database. They want immediately. But then when they enter in institute after the recruitment, they understand it change the mindset, the opinion about the statistical process.
Thank you, Rodrigo.
I agree with some of the comments that have been spoken. I believe there is room for an employer branding campaign for some countries, but I think the scope should be not to lie about how sexy the work is, but about that we exist as a career pathway option. You know, like a lot of generations, a lot of people, qualified people that is looking for a new job should be aware that we exist as an option. So my scope or my proposal would be to go in a creative way in that sense, so that people that is, you know, graduate student or something might say, you know, I wanted to work in something regarding information or data. I've been looking for some companies, and then suddenly I saw an opening position in Statistics Poland. Maybe I should give it a shot. You know, it may be attractive, so maybe I should go for that way. So for me, just making people aware that we exist as a career option would be a positive matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Okay, and just one last thought. When we're talking about how we want to brand and how we want to build our reputation as a National Statistical Office, but just from my experience and about the honesty I talked before, is I know, yeah, every boss, every manager wants to have just super people in their department, and they're just looking for data analysts, data scientists, and all those high words. But okay, maybe I don't know enough, but when I go and I'm running over the house every single day, in my opinion, you don't need a data analyst or a data scientist in every single position they're telling me. Because let's be honest here, people, you got some positions, you need an extra super smart and skilled employee. But there are also many positions where people will sit down for 8 hours in front of the computer, opening up their Excels, looking for empty cells and just scrolling over the Excel. And yeah, we must acknowledge that we also need to find that kind of people with like an accountant mindset or something like that. Not just researchers who want to do experiments, who want to plan sandboxes, who want to build up models and things like that. So in my opinion, also the managers got to be honest about the nature of the work on some positions, and that we actually need a little people with not so much high data skills. So this is just my opinion.
Thank you, Tina. Yes.
Hello, I'm Fırat from Turkey. I totally agree for the speakers as Tina. He said we need to data analysis, data miners, and Python R. At this point, I want to add a contribution. As you know, the personal profile that required by statistic offices is changing. We often call that I-statistician. Gradually approaching the IT field, but IT field is very different, has a very different dynamics in it. As you know, IT industry has the most dynamic personal policies in there. At this point, the statistic offices need to prepare themselves for the new requirement of this field. For example, salary and rotation, work environment, and working times. We all want to this well-qualified personnel, but we need to prepare ourselves with these requirements, I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so this small sample of thoughts in our NSO that was presented here leads us to the presentation. I hope that Aydin is together with us from Ireland. I had information that she is. So
yes, Anna, sorry, apologies for my late arrival, but I am here.
No problem. So maybe I should start with a short introduction to this presentation. Why this subject? Yes. In my office in Statistics Poland, we started to think what to do to, again, attract new employees, because we do not have such situation described by Antonio. I think that we've got permanently about 70 to 90 vacancies. And if we've got 1 or 2 offers for each, it's enough. Yes, it's really, right now, it's really difficult to employ new people. And of course, the first and the main issue is money. But I try to think what to do forgetting about the money. Yes. So we started to think about the employer branding. Okay, so next slide, please. And And the next. And I was, one before. And I was inspired by my colleague. She worked in the Chancellery of the Prime Minister. And in this Chancellery, there is situated the Chief of Civil Service for the whole public administration in Poland. And they've got different contacts across the world with other public administration bodies. And I found out that OECD organized this year in spring for public administration. It was webinar strictly connected with the employer branding. And unfortunately, I didn't participate in this event, but I received from my colleague some presentations. Of course, I don't know details and what is really behind what I show you in a minute, but this was also an impulse for us in Statistics Poland to think about it widely. So the next. So the first presentation was from France, and they stated that the collective work has led to a state employer brand strategy. So they think that the strategy for the branding is necessary, taking into account three targets. First, the future candidates for the civil service, as we were discussing a little bit before about recruiting. The general public for campaigns that may not be focused solely on recruitment. So I see this as the brand is much wider than only the recruiting people. And mobility project for staff members. Maria, you said a little bit about it. The second presentation was done by Sweden, and they indicated that they need the purpose and the goal with a common brand, that it should be the employer brand for the central government sector as a whole, so not only for our statistical offices, but for the whole public sector. And that the target group's awareness of the central government sector as an attractive employer should grow. So I understand this, that by this strategy, by taking some activities, the perception of us should be better. Also, that a strong employer brand might contribute to a strong self-esteem and pride among the government employees. I think that this is similar to what was said, I don't know, on the first day. I think that some people perceive us as a public good, public service, and they really want to work with us. And finally, the contact and collaboration between government agencies will increase. So this brand shouldn't be done separately, but within the network. Okay, the next presentation was from Switzerland. They indicated the problem. The problem was shortage of skilled workers in 2021, almost at pre-pandemic level. The conclusion was that we are looking for the same people as our competitors. So we discussed that how to compete with, in some cases with other ministries, but mainly with private sector. And what this all mean for us as an employer. So again, Switzerland, the representative from Switzerland indicated that they need a strong employer brand. And I think that they show here that we need to they need to take account emotions and mind. Yes, I don't really know what was behind these statements, but I think that it was like that. So the idea is that maybe we should look for us as the employer brand as it was a consumer brand. Aiden will be talk about it a little bit later. And I think finally, United States, they've got employer branding in the public service labor market, and they took into account 3 factors which should be considered. So again, the governments are part of the broader labor market, so we are not alone. We need to compete. Norms and expectations around careers are shifting, and it is essential to reach a diverse talent pool. We also discussed about that we need talents in our offices, but as Tina said, not only. Yes, there are some parts of our offices that we need really talented people. Okay, so now I would like to present you on the base of Statistics Poland, the employer's point of view. As I said, it is just the beginning, the initial actions. So first, a short definition, description. What is employer branding? So these are actions undertaken by the employer to create image of a good employer. The main goal of these actions is to increase interest of potential candidates in working in the NSO, as well as increase the level of employee retention and employee satisfaction. So we've got, on one hand, the brand is connected with communication, but the connections are strictly with HR processes, yes? In times of budget constraints and difficult or even impossible competition with other ministries or private sector, it is necessary to think about creating the employer branding in a broader context, and not just about the financial reward that is available. So we think that, or we can indicate that we've got 2 types, let's say, of employer branding. It is external and internal. So this external one is focused on our future employees, so the candidates, and it includes external human resource management processes, external communication, and external CSR action. CSR is corporate social responsibility actions. I think that it is strictly connected with well-being. We discussed it a lot these last 2 days. And internal employer branding is focused on our current employees. And I think that the recruitment is rather not correct here, but internal, of course, internal communication and internal CSR actions. So here is the long list what we plan to do. Again, not having money, so I just choose some of them, not all of them. So first, we want to focus on values during the recruitment process. To be fair, to be honest, as Tina said, to our future employees. We also need to change internally. We need to digitalize recruitment process to be more efficient and effective. We also should create a good atmosphere or mood during the interviews. We also should update and better promote guidelines for newly recruited employees. And what was said also, build career paths based on both retained employee and exit interviews. So some of them, not all of them. Of course, we need to have stronger cooperation with academia. And the last, I think, is important as we are discussing about new people, young people, changing market, labor market. I think that now it's really important that maybe we should reorient our job descriptions, and it should be more task oriented or project oriented. So as we know that Generation Z, which is coming to us, has different approach. Yes, if it's good, they are stay. If not, they are going to another place. They are not afraid of this. So let's start to, let's say, to use them as much as possible to make that they do for us something good, and agree that they are that they leave us in, I don't know, 1 or 2 years, but the product will stay with us, produced by them, maybe something new, something innovative. And my idea was also that what was saying the experience from Stat Canada, that let them these young people to do something good, even they maybe at the beginning they did something wrong. They need also to learn as we did it when we were young, okay? Because I think that every time has generation Z, let's say, yes, maybe 20 or whatever. We were also like generation Z for older generations, yes. So in this case, it's similarity. And my idea is also that maybe using clean, if it will be possible, let them to do something good, and maybe they release for them and for us the time, resources to do something more innovative and things like that. And even if they decide to go away, to find another place, we need to agree for that and find another person, and for again to do for us something good. Okay, so that was my part. It was the employer point of view. And now I would like to ask Aydin to continue our presentation with communication point of view.
Thanks, Anna. And apologies again for my late arrival. Just for anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Aydin Shepherd. I work for Central Statistics Office in Ireland, and I work in the communications division. And I have a particular focus on marketing and digital marketing specifically. And Anna, I worked last year on a project as part of the Capabilities and Communications Group on branding and the importance of branding and reputation management. And then Anna asked me to contribute to this paper based on the idea of how branding, I guess, and employer branding specifically, would work or could be supported by communications. And I guess I just wanted to talk a little bit about, as Anna was mentioning there, employer branding. Obviously, this whole discussion is in that space. But she did mention that brand is a wider thing than just employer branding. But I think what we feel is that there is a role for that brand in influencing people maybe to participate in, or to be engaged or interested in working for us as an employer. So I suppose just to kind of think about brand in that wider context, if you think about really strong brands, global brands, things like Nike and Coke and Apple, they're brands that transcends their output. So there is associated with success with a cool factor. So we know Nike produce sporting goods, we know Coke produce beverages, and Apple produce phones, but people's awareness of them is broader than that, I guess, to some degree. Now, we're not, we don't have necessarily the ambition to achieve that level of global awareness, but the ideas behind that are pretty similar, in that it is very important to have people see your brand as something that is, and have an association immediately in their heads as to what that represents. So for us, for NSOs in general, and this is only just random kind of thinking, is, possible keywords are things like public good, important to society, government, independent, trustworthy, ethical. These are the kind of ideas, I guess, we want people to think about when they see something like CSO or any other brand. Sorry, can everybody hear me?
Yes. And
Oh yeah, sorry.
when we can also see you.
Yeah, okay, apologies. So so that creating awareness piece requires ongoing messaging and campaigns to reflect this brand position. So that is, I suppose, where communications and marketing comes in, is that sort of idea of how do we reach the world and get people to understand who we are before they ever think about coming to work for us. And so all of our communications campaigns and outputs need to reflect what we want to say about ourselves to the world. And then building on that positive brand is where we may encourage prospective employees to seek us out, or at least pay attention to us. So again, Anna and myself had a discussion around this recently, and we were saying a lot of the time, if people are looking for work and people are, think of maybe making a change in their career, they will often just, go, rather than looking for vacancies in places, they will often go to a company that they're aware of or have some other connection, have had some experience of, in order to see if there is work there. So that's where the brand piece comes in. If you can sort of be that that go-to place where people just have an interest in you initially, regardless of whether the work is there or not. So can we just move on to the next slide there? So I guess that is that idea of what is a consumer brand. Is that idea that I think one of the that Anna mentioned in her part of the presentation, looking at us as a consumer brand, and then saying, if you could view employees as consumers of your brand, or consumers of what you have to offer them. And if we frame it in that way, then what they're customers. So we have to think about what is in it for them and why would they engage with us. And I know these are all things that you've already discussed in this group, but letting people know that there's meaningful and challenging work, that they have ownership and responsibility, and the potential to make a difference. So these are kind of, I guess, what an employer as a customer might be looking for. And again, this is not an exhaustive list, it's just some ideas around how we could present a brand, an employer brand, to the world. And then the other, I guess, important element for people who were considering coming to work for us would be, how will you take care of me? So how will you take care of me as a person? And these are things like opportunities to develop, opportunities for further education, flexible working hours, pension schemes, wellbeing programs. These are all of the things that we may be able to offer people that are not just about money. And I guess that is it is important to think, to understand that, while money is definitely important for people, research has shown it is definitely not the most, it need not necessarily be the driving factor, which, as all of you are very aware of. So then the idea would be that recruitment campaigns, graduate fairs, where we go on those, where we present ourselves as a potential employer, must always, have those messages front and center. And wherever we go in terms of promoting us as an employer brand, the selling points, the key advantages of our organization needs to be front and center. The other thing to remember, I guess, is that employees themselves can be a great source of brand positivity, and they're great and can be great ambassadors for the brand. But that only works if we deliver on the promise. And I think this has already been part of the discussion as well, that, if we are going out to the world saying, this is what we will give you and this is what we offer you, then we do have to be honest about that, because ensuring that what you're telling people as they come in the door is reflected in the experience they have is very important. So yes, if there are aspects of the work that is boring and routine, okay, you don't want to be going out there saying, oh, some of the work is really boring, but you have to be honest that it's not always going to be life-changing or world-changing or whatever. So it's just that happy and fulfilled employees are great ambassadors, but the opposite is also true, that where people's experience is not met, they can cause a lot of damage to an employer brand. And particularly in this, in the digital age where, you know, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, you know, lots of different employee reviews forums exist, it is really important that people are don't feel, I guess, betrayed by our branding or our marketing campaigns when they come through. So what I would say is it is a really good idea to use the capacity to brand and market things, but we have to be clear that we don't overpromise and that we're honest in how we present ourselves to people in recruitment campaigns. And then there's a follow-through piece. I've mentioned there's strong induction programs, strong mentoring programs, and strong internal visibility of links between the outputs and brand identity and values. So again, that's about trying to, again, delivering on what we've said in the process to make sure that people feel that they got what they paid for, I guess, is what we're trying to say. So I guess in summary, I just think that employer brand is not really something that gets to be created by an employer. We can create a view that we can put out to the world, and we can have a brand association built through marketing campaigns, built through our outputs and how we present ourselves to the world. But at the end of it all, an employer brand, I guess, is created by other people's perceptions, and it can only be influenced by what we do. And what we do needs to be very reflective of what we say we're going to do when people are coming to us and maybe engaging with us for the first time in terms of employer perception. So I guess the purpose of this presentation was to, for Anna and I were thinking about how communication, marketing, branding, all of those can support the recruitment of people that we need, and in a competing labour market, and a highly competitive labour market. And I think that there are some ideas here that we could maybe develop further in terms of how we link what we do as an organisation and the brand we present to the world, and how we kind of can leverage that to, you know, support the HR community in recruiting and retaining people. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Aideen. So I just want to add that this subject we would like to continue within our group next year. That's why it was this presentation. So do you've got any questions or comments? Yes, Elena?
It starts from what you say, that is recruiting people, you have to be ready to let them go after 1-2 years if they are. But recruiting process can be also expensive in terms of energy and money as well. So what I'm seeing, not from the HR perspective, and I'm seeing probably HR want to attract people and bring a lot of innovation in the system, but the structure is not ready to welcome these new ideas of this new generation that are bringing a lot into this. And what happened in the last 2-3 years has impacted a lot in the new generation, but also the old generation. And it's not anymore about in terms of money or even this well-being scheme. It's also about, we spend more than 8 hours sometimes in the office. And if the office, the team, and these hours are not really, there is a boring part, of course, in all our job. It can be IT, communication, there are really hard working times, but we are all human in all this, and we don't have to forget in bringing this part in the team, in the structure itself, because sometimes I see the structure is too structured, and it's not, we are all at the same level. When some challenges happen, COVID made us feeling we all are in the same, no matter where, which country, we are all at the same level. And this is in all the NSO, such as other institutional. So, yeah.
Yeah, Lena, thank you for this comment. You are totally true. Of course, this is the process of recruiting is expensive in terms of course, money, time, and resources. And you are also right that people are not ready for these changes. But you know, this is to some extent a contradictory, because from my experience is that people are very addicted and attached to this, let's say, boring, but maybe not all of them boring, but today task. But on the other hand, they are complaining about it. Yes, I think that in this project that Dominika presented yesterday, the results when was the survey was run, people are just simply afraid of their work, because if it's going something new, they are, and maybe they do not have enough details about it. What does it mean for them? Yes. So again, we come back to communication. We come back to change processes and things like that. But your comment was just on point. Okay. Fabrizio.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. I'm learning a lot of things about the different generations, Z, Y, and so on. So a reflection, then a question, but not only about the presentation, more in general. I reflect that maybe we are used to think that generation changes more or less every 10 years. We used to think, but I think that at the moment, I think that every 5 years change generation. Z, don't know, Omega, maybe the next one. But it's very important in order to think about the shattering of the young people. Because I absolutely agree with you that at the moment I have a daughter that now is approaching the work labor, and she has some goals like this, the well-being, well, very virtual, abstract goals anyway, absolutely agreeable. But anyway, at the moment, I'm being involved in experience with the Minister of Justice in Italy. They were recruited for the highest position. Even they are 26, 27, 28 young. I think that they could take them a distorted vision of the labor, because they are completely prepared about absolutely very high competencies in education, but they really don't know the mechanisms of the labor, the work. So the problem that we are to tackle with. But anyway, but the question more in general is the same in your experience. Of course, we have a lot of different experiences about the possibility for a very young people to be recruited immediately at the highest position in our administration, or your public competition starts from the lowest position, then they have to go through the career and reach the highest position.
I think that in the past it was possible like this, because we've got in Poland a special school for servants. It is national school. But right now there are regulations about the age, the seniority, about the experience, and other issues that so young people, as you said, can't immediately become a high servant. But in the past, yes, it was possible. Yes, Maria?
The Irish situation is a little different, actually, because we don't have a tradition of what I would call the grandes écoles, or these very high achieving dedicated specialist schools for public administration. And the convention in Ireland over many decades was that we had an extremely rigid hierarchy of grades in our civil service, and you started at the bottom and you served your time, and you had to take every step on the stairs. You could not jump over steps to get ahead. That system has changed to a point, and it is now possible to apply from external to the civil service for positions at various levels of seniority. Although quite often there will be a requirement in the job specification for a certain number of years of professional experience, but it has introduced a little more flexibility in the system. So we would now have the experience of managers who are quite a lot younger than some of their staff, which can create an interesting dynamic. But equally, in those situations, typically, those younger managers have higher levels of educational attainment than many of their staff who may be in years more senior to them. It is a problem for us in our particular organization, however, because notwithstanding the increasing flexibility in terms of the grading structure, we cannot persuade our central administration to give us flexibility in our statistician grade. So we can only recruit at a given level of remuneration tied to the bottom of the grade pay scale. And then our statisticians have to walk every step of the grade pay scale to increase in seniority. So it's an interesting hybrid problem for us. First of all, overcoming years of rigidity in our civil service grading structure, and now being locked into a pay structure inside a grade that is frustrating our recruitment opportunities. So we would see a lot of very young political advisors working with the political side of our ministries, but not so much very young civil servants at senior levels, although it's gradually changing. So it's an interesting differentiation.
I have to step in because the next presenter is not available after 11. So if we can move the discussion, we can continue later on, but we really now have to start with the next presentation. Now we have to do the presentation now because, and then we
Okay,
can
so
afterwards
thank you very
discuss
much.
things. Yeah, please. Sorry, but it's just practical, not possible to have it later for him.
So maybe without further ado then, and with apologies for losing track on the schedule, we might move to the next presentation. This is our final presentation before the lunch break, and the title is Building an Academy, the DotStat Academy Experience. And the presenter for this slot is Jonathan Challoner. Jonathan is the community manager for the Statistical Information System Collaboration Community, the SISCC, within the Smart Data Practices and Solutions Division at the OECD Statistics and Data Directorate. Jonathan has worked in the world of data and statistics for over 15 years in the UK, New Zealand, and at an international level within the OECD, combining experiences from both public and private sectors in data and business process analysis, project delivery, and technology-driven changes in support of open data strategies to build a reference open source community for official statistics through co-investment and co-innovation. Jonathan, thank you for your patience, and you're extremely welcome here today. You're on mute, Jonathan.
Yeah, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you, so. No, still no sound.
Might check if the headset.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so thank you, sorry for that. And thank you for the introduction. And I realize also I'm between you and the coffee break, so hopefully I won't hold you up from that. And thank you also for the opportunity to make this presentation today. So in this presentation, I want to share the experiences from the .stat Academy. So this is the online learning hub built by the Statistical Information Collaboration community. And SICC for short. Some of you may know this and some of you are actually members of our community. And what I want to talk about today is really looking at how we went from a concept idea to a beta launch in a short few months. So just maybe first, just to recap on who, or tell you who the SICC is for those who don't know and maybe aren't up to date on this. We're 15 members today. The last member joining was Statistics Canada. You can see quite diverse organizations here, NSO, central banks, international, etc. And this brings a lot of interesting sort of discussions and ideas to our community. And we also work with a number of partners. So we work closely with Eurostat for many years, Paris 21 in capacity development efforts, more recently with the Bank of International Settlements and Eurostat in a sort of trilateral relationship, and other UN agencies as well. And of course, being a sponsor of the XMX community, this is a sort of cornerstone of what we're doing. Our raison d'etre, if you like, is a reference open source community for official statistics, focusing on products excellence and delivering concrete solutions to common problems through co-investment and co-investment. This is an important part. So we really are focusing on delivering, and it's really a co-investment model. So there's no commercial entity behind what we're doing, although we do work with technical partners to support our work, of course. So just quickly on our strategy. So our strategy is a pyramid you can see here, built on foundations, these 4 foundations. 2 of the most important here is the community-driven dynamics, the open source model. And we're looking to stretch our value in how we can do this. And this is what I want to talk about today, which is around this capacity building sort of topic. So yeah, as I mentioned, the capacity building efforts here, we are a community delivering solutions. So of course, delivering solutions, and especially in the world of statistics and XMX in particular, is not necessarily something you can just do by giving a tool and hope that people learn and understand how to do this. The idea here is to actually develop a learning or knowledge, within these the people, the users in the community, through building an academy. And the academy is a self-paced online learning hub. You've talked about many different types of learnings or ways of learning, and people learn in many different ways as well. So there are different approaches. This is just one approach that I want to present, and it is quite complementary to others. Yesterday, for example, you saw a presentation from StatsCan and OECD on the Meta Academy project, or the carpentry approach that focused on more synchronous learning, so on-site, online. And here, as I mentioned, we're talking about more self-paced learning, so with a certificate at the end. So our goal here for the .stat Academy was really around providing free, so this is really free training and resources to build capacity in the .stat suite in particular, which is our sort of flagship product, if you like, and XDMX for data producers and the technologists that are involved in this project or want to be involved in this project. We're also looking to extend our core community to build a community of users, adopters, and contributors. So this doesn't happen on its own. We need people to contribute, and we're building a community of contributors around this as well. One of our goals is obviously to increase knowledge in the .stat suite, to sort of reduce the number of support requests we get, and also build capacity in the ability to actually adopt the .stat suite more easily in an organization. The platform itself is built on WordPress, so it's a very common platform. It's a powerful plugin that we've used here, which is called LearnPress, which is providing a well-established technical stack at low cost, where you put in place easy-to-use tools. So what you see is what you get type approach for contributors to easily create courses. And the learning experience is very personalized and intuitive on a modern sort of easy-to-use platform. So as I mentioned, the platform is WordPress with LearnPress, yeah. So just move to the next slide. So our content, so the content area, which is very important, of course, in any sort of learning environment, we built some learning paths that support the training needs. So we did a study and worked a lot on personas and how who are our targets and what are their objectives. Categorizing these into two main persona types, the data producers and data toolers. I'll come back to that in a moment. The content is designed to make learners' experience very engaging, solving practical problems that they're and hopefully meeting their objectives through these learning levels designed to build their knowledge over time and knowledge and skills over time, geared toward their sort of ultimate objective. Through different levels from foundation through to expert. It's not only a learning environment, but it's also an environment for project showcasing. We have ideation sessions and webinars, etc. We actually have a webinar next week with the ILO around their tools and using their tools for XDMX data modeling. So just maybe just to talk about the building blocks also of how we went about this. It's very important to look at the pedagogical approach here. So we engaged experts. I mean, we really weren't experts in the beginning of this. We've learned as we've gone through this journey. We were helped along the way with experts at different sort of key stages. We learned from others. So we did a sort of benchmarking against other communities to understand what they're doing and how they're doing it. Very important to sort of choose a learning method. And here we looked at Bloom's and adopted Bloom's. And as I mentioned before, the sort of two user groups that we talk about, the data producers and data toolers, is to identify who they are and also the secondary users and the personas around this and describing their needs and goals to help you define these learning paths. So this is what we did initially. And we felt that it was really important to take a learn by doing approach. So we built a pilot course, in fact, that's still there today and still used by, and many are enrolled in this course. And it helped us to learn by doing, as I said, and really help to build experience in our team, but also, gather information and feedback from the users. I also mentioned before about the contributors. So this is a very important part, to train the trainers, so the experts, the people who have actually produced the content and facilitate for the learning to take place. It's very important to build their knowledge and the mechanisms for them to contribute more easily through templates and things like this. So we also have a feedback loop to prioritize content areas and listen closely to what our users are saying and how they're using the platform and learning through the platform. So this was a step-by-step approach we've been taking. So of course, it's not linear in the sense we're always constantly sort of adapting and learning and getting feedback and moving through the sort of different steps from research and concept development, pre-launching, platform development, pilot course, as I mentioned, launching the platform in beta first. Very important to say this is not complete. We're trying to engage with the community, try to get the feedback, developing templates to make it more easier to sort of contribute and develop content for the platform, and training our trainers. And we produced a course actually in the platform to do this more easily, and launching more courses. So we've already launched more technical courses, but we've also launched recently an Introduction to XDMX course, which is live and available. And soon we'll be launching a few other courses around data modeling. So As I mentioned, we engaged experts. So we engaged a non-profit in the UK called GCATI, who specialise in global training and certification. They helped us to sort of develop this initial personas and content strategy, etc. And then we've been engaged through the sort of platform implementation and content development with a company called EI Design through a market consultation to help us, coach the content creators, the trainers, etc., produce guidelines and the templates around this. I mentioned the balloons. So this is a taxonomy for learning, teaching and assessing. It originally consisted of 6 major categories around knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis and evaluation. It was revised in 2001, which you can see on screen here. And this is what we've adopted in our approach to developing our community or the academy. So creating a body of knowledge, I mean, this doesn't happen on its own. You've got to define a sort of learning outcomes, curriculum around that. What is the training material? It's not necessarily everything is a course. You may find things are just simple videos or short tutorials, etc. It really depends on what you're trying to achieve in the end. But also structuring your content around maybe having tests and checking your knowledge. We have a sort of check your knowledge stage in most of our courses to allow users to understand, or for us to understand how the users actually grasp what they're reading and trying to digest the information. So I mentioned the personas, 2 main persona types of data producers and data toolers. So these are more the sort of statisticians, the people producing the data, managing the data flow, or on the other side, the people who are actually installing, maintaining, or want to contribute, in fact, to the platform as well. The learning levels, so we've got these 5 learning levels from awareness, just to sort of understand what everything is about, get some basic understanding, from foundation to sort of build on that knowledge, to get the basics of what that is, to allow you to move through to a practitioner where you actually apply this, and then become an expert and beyond, where you can even start to contribute and sort of teach others in the content that you're producing. So we built a number of templates. This is a learning architecture template. It's in Excel. It's quite simple, but it allows a lot of the work for content creation to be done offline and share with your peers, evaluate, sort of, adjust and before even getting near the platform to sort of populate with your content and develop your course. I mentioned the learning path, so this is a very important thing around the journey of someone's taking. So we developed 2 interactive infographics for the data producers and data toolers to sort of show a typical journey that they might take with the courses at every stage of that path through the different levels from awareness to expert and master and beyond. So I mentioned learn by doing, so we developed this pilot course. It's still there today, as I mentioned. It helped us to sort of launch and engage with a community, helped us to really learn ourselves and get used to the platform and get used to creating content. We built a train the trainers course in there, which is really important because building engaging and impactful impactful learning experiences is really an art and requires careful planning, clear objectives, and a willingness by the contributors to evolve their sort of, probably their usual or comforts way of presenting content in a face-to-face meeting or through PowerPoint slides. It's a very different way of producing content and delivering content. So it's important that they're actually coming along on that journey with you. We have this continuous feedback loop. So we have this continuous feedback loop where we've engaged with our students. We have the instructors, the improvers of the content, etc. So this is very important. We're not only building courses and content for consumption, we're also building community, and the continuous feedback loop is a very important one. So, sorry. Yeah, so just to finish up here. So what we've built here is a reusable product. It's very important to say that. And here we could also imagine sharing this. What we've done, not only the approach even reusing content, reusing content from others as well, but also methodology that we applied and the approach, as I mentioned, that can easily be replicated. The platform itself is built on common components, highly configurable, and can meet different contexts. So all this is very shareable and reusable and can be applied in different contexts. I'll just leave you here with this slide. So just to finish up is learning experiences really need to be optimized experiences, as we found in this journey that we've taken, sensitive to the actual needs of the learners, type of learning that you're trying to apply it to, the resources that you have, and the time and budget, of course, is a very important question as well for the learning. And learning should really be seen as journey and not a one-time event. So thank you for your attention, and I appreciate the time to make this presentation today.
Thanks indeed, Jonathan. And we apologize once again for coming to you so late. I understand that you're under a degree of time pressure to exit this call to go on to another commitment. So if there are a lot of questions, I might suggest that we will catalogue them for you, send them on to you, and perhaps you'd be good enough to respond by email, and those email responses could be circulated. But if you have a moment or two, perhaps I can just open to the room in case there's anything very pressing that anybody would like to ask Jonathan. First hand up, Pamela Lafferty from CSO Ireland. Pamela.
Hi, and thank you very much for the really interesting presentation. I suppose what's a little bit unclear to me is who's the target audience for the training? So is it particularly relevant to official statistics, or is it more generally data producers or data toolers? That's all. It's just a short one. Thank you.
And thank you for the question. I mean, today it's really our community's focus on the .stat suite, which is a platform for producing and dissemination of statistics in NSOs, in international organizations, an extension of our existing community members. So really there are data producers who are statisticians, maybe in NSO, or who wants to learn about XDMX or wants to learn about how to produce data and disseminate my data. Or they want to adopt a tool like .stat, or maybe even understand technologies that we're using around .stat. So these are our targets, first and foremost. But it's free and open to use, so anyone can come in and basically take the courses. It's not restricted to just those organizations.
I think Supriya has a question. Supriya, you might introduce yourself to Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you, Supriya Edwards, Statistics Canada. Thank you very much for the presentation, Jonathan. How do you assure quality of the content and the material? I like having this open to lots of people, I think is fantastic, but that's always one of the questions or concerns, following that. Thank you.
A great question. Yes, I mean it's always a challenge to sort of put quality controls in, and even in statistics we struggle with that sometimes to sort of validate what we're doing. So we have a sort of peer review process, and this is why we built templates, very much sort of structuring the way that the content is produced. Today the content producers are really a small set of people who are mostly internal to us today, and they are producing this content using these templates, sharing with their peers, having them sign off on this. We also engage with this EI designs, these e-learning experts who are sort of helping us to ensure that we're aligned to our approach that we've defined in the sort of guidelines that we've produced. So this is, and also, again, anyone who's producing content will, as a must or a prerequisite, has to take the Train Your Trainers course. So this is a must-have, and they have to go through this process to understand how they should be producing content, but also how to use the platform and templates that we provided.
If you have time, Jonathan, I have a question.
Sure,
And
please.
I hope I didn't miss the answer to this question already embedded in the presentation or in the preamble to the presentation. But as between the work that Kate and Eric presented yesterday to us and on the Meta Academy and this resource, is Stat Academy a subset potentially of the broader Meta Academy product? Is it the other way around? Do they need to live separately, or how do you envisage that they intersect?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great question actually, because this is something we've already talked about. I mean, I would say it's more of a subproduct, and as I mentioned before, they're complementary, and learners, you know, we all know this. I mean, people learn in many different ways. So you have to engage with them in different ways that suits their needs. Self-paced, you know, is important. And what we're building here is a self-paced learning, online learning platform. We're time poor. We're doing many things. Our organization's budgets are cutting. You know, we have limited staff, and we need to find new, innovative ways of engaging with them and allowing them to learn. So yeah, they're very complementary, and they should be seen as maybe subproducts of one another, not sort of contradicting each other or even replacing each other in any way.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Are there any further questions from the floor? No. I think, Jonathan, we're good to go. The coffee's calling at this end. We really appreciate both the very interesting and stimulating presentation. I think for most of us in the room, this was new. So there's a lot to be learned. And as you say, highly complementary to the presentation yesterday on the Meta Academy. So thanks very much indeed for your intervention. And we look forward to hearing more as the two projects continue in parallel and perhaps intersect as well. Thanks indeed.
Thank you, and have a nice coffee. Good day.
So for those in the room here and for those who are following online with something of a delay, we will now move to the coffee break. I'll ask that people please do stick to the 15 minutes that was originally scheduled for coffee. So on that basis, if we say that we will meet back here just a fraction after 20 past, maybe we could push it to 25 past. So 25 past, bums on seats in the room, please. Thanks very much, folks.
So for those that are traveling today, I've been informed by the reception. If you need any taxi from here, tell them in advance, because it's quite, there's a lot of traffic. I suggested for some people to go through Uber, book it in advance as well, because apparently it's having some issues, legal issues in Brussels as well. And there are not so many cars. So book it, you can book it in advance through the app. If you need any support, come to me. But for taxis, book them also in advance, please. Thank you.
Okay, so welcome back after coffee break. We are, let's say, a little bit delayed. So our suggestion is to start now the presentation on city matrix. And after that, we will have the full picture of everything, and we can conclude our workshop. So this will be presented by Marina Gandolfo from ESTAT Italy, by Renata Bielak from Statistics Poland, and by Olga Świerkot-Stróżewska, also from Statistics Poland. And if you are ready, please go ahead, and if you can, please turn on your video.
Renata will start.
Yes, I will start. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
I allowed my video.
If you can, please.
Yes, I started my video. I have no idea why you can't see me.
It's loading, I think. It takes time.
Okay.
It's dark. We see Marina, but we don't see you.
I see only Marina's presentation. Okay, so I tried again to start my video, but nothing happens. Okay, anyway, I know you are in a hurry, so maybe not waiting for my video. I will just start to present what we are going to say about CD matrix. But first of all, thank you for inviting us to the meeting to present this capacity development matrix, which was developed within the UNECE steering group on statistics for SDGs. Let me start with introducing you briefly with this steering group, which I'm co-chairing together with Sarah Frankel from Statistics Sweden. Steering group was set up in 2016 by the Conference of European Statisticians to guide and coordinate CES work on statistics for sustainable development goals. The mission of our steering group is to provide guidance to countries on statistical follow-up of 2030 agenda, which is the document that sets 17 sustainable development goals for the world. The latest and most significant output of the steering group is the roadmap on statistics for SDGs, which second edition has been released in February this year. The roadmap provides guidance to NSOs and other stakeholders on how to best navigate the complex process of measuring the achievements of SDGs. Supporting countries, especially members of national statistical systems, on providing statistics for SDGs requires focusing on various areas, and it requires also to take into account many issues that affect the whole data framework. And capacity development is one of the meaningful components of this data framework that constitutes solid, high quality, and agile statistical system. That is why capacity development task team was established under the steering group to work on this significant topic. The task team has elaborated capacity development matrix as a tool that enables to assess the needs of capacity building, but it also allows to evaluate the potential of human resources within an organization, which Olga Świerkot-Stróżewska is going to present basing on exercise undertaken by Statistics Poland. Before Olga's presentation, I would like to ask Marina Gandolfo from ISTAT, who is leading the capacity development task team, to tell you more about the concept of the matrix. So Marina, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Renata. Good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here in this workshop. We are talking exactly about human resources. We are talking about skills in somehow. So I will, next slides, please. I would like to just tell you about the fact that the task team on capacity development mentioned by Renata, which is co-chaired by me, yes, but also by my colleague from Montenegro, has developed together with all the members of the task team, the capacity development matrix that covers all statistical activities within the NSI, but also within the national statistical system. So what are the idea behind this? We would like to provide a easy, friendly, useful tool to support the NSI in premise, but also the others could be the assessment by the country of the real needs and national priorities areas in which we would like to enhance statistical capacity for SDGs in premise, but also beyond SDGs. Obviously reflecting the country, the demand-driven approach, and also the country-led approach. So the tools has the scope to assess also, as Renata was saying, the NSO's partner countries' own statistical capacity to possibly provide support to respond to the needs and priorities for SDGs and beyond, given the national context in the UNECE CES region. Now, how is made this matrix? I can show you because it's very huge, but it includes strategic pillars, organizational pillars, the IT tools, and also all the statistical domains. Obviously, we have also taken into account all the approach like the GSBPM, GCM, and so on. What I would like just to say is that this matrix more or less is also a way for NSO to understand which level of development they have, and for sure also what kind of strategy and priorities they have in order to understand what are the channel in which we would like to invest and to ask for support if there is no capacity inside. It's a matter of fact that the matrix include soft and hard skills. And we can see the matrix as a tool that highlights the skills available, the need of training, for example, where there is a need to reinforce the skills or a lack of them, and the need, for example, of external support, maybe by technical cooperation project, for example, in areas to which donors can contribute. So in somehow there is also the how to say, the feeling about the supply and demand. Final last slides, please. And in this respect, the tool can also be extremely efficient as an assessment tool for the countries to recognize the weak and the strong areas within our institution, NSO, but not only, also for national statistical system. And by the way, and this is important aspect, to better negotiate the contribution offered by the donor partners, providing a clear picture of their own needs and priorities. Sometimes they have also to say, no, this is not what I need some others, but you have to be able to assess. So the tool, but finally, the tool can be also very important from the perspective of partner countries or donors countries, which can support the partner countries according to their needs. The matrix, in fact, would allow to map the internal skills as a human resources available to be used for the possible support. So the pilot of the Statistics Poland, that is a member of our task team, is a very valid contribution in this respect, and they have done a pilot in this, and for this I'm very pleased to give the floor to my dear colleagues Olga from Statistics Poland. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marina. Good morning, still morning, everybody in Brussels and online. Here is Olga Świerko-Stróżewska. Can you hear me? Could you please confirm?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you so much, Anna. Thank you. So it is my pleasure to present you the perspective of Statistics Poland in using the matrix, the practical approach that we have tried to test and implement from the donor perspective. Because as Marina was mentioning, the matrix initially was designed as a tool enabling beneficiary countries in this partner relation, donor beneficiary, that we do not like very much with Marina, but to distinguish it, we use sometimes these words. So initially, partner, they are, of course, they are always partners, but it was designed just to distinguish and to make you the difference, to make you see the difference. It was designed for the partner countries from the beneficiary sides to assess their own needs that sometimes they are not even aware of in this maze and plethora of technical development projects, of technical assistance projects, capacity development projects, different kinds of projects. Sometimes it's also very important to underline what Marina was saying, that it is demand driven, because the success of capacity development projects resides in the fact that these are demand driven. But what we did in Statistics Poland, and my short intervention is going to tackle right now, is we have reversed the perspective. So we have tried to use this matrix and to test its utility from the donor side. Could you please change slide? Thank you so much. This was not our first attempt to assess the human resources potential at Statistics Poland to see how many actually people in our huge organization, because Statistics Poland is like 5,500 people, headquarters and regional statistical offices. So we wanted to know a couple of years ago, 4 years ago for the first time, when our international activity started being more intense. So we actually faced this situation that we were asked very often, would you be on board on this project, on this project, on this project? And these were like ad hoc activities. So we wanted to be sure with how many people, with how many talents we can actually deal in undertaking such kind of activities like technical development project and stuff. So we tried to assess our potential 4 years ago. But it was very clumsy, I would say. We lacked of a kind of knowledge, know-how, how to do it. So we used our program of surveys, annual program of surveys. We took the substantive matter areas from there, and we tried to address our queries to the people that we knew have been engaged previously in some international capacity development or other international activities, and to ask them a question: are you willing, hypothetically, to contribute, if need be, to an international project, to share your knowledge, to share your skills with international partners? So we were not very much successful 4 years ago, because we had like 100 people saying yes, which in scale of 5,000, more than 5,000 employees of Statistics Poland was not a very impressive number. However, we lacked a serious information that time, which areas actually Statistics Poland as an institution is able to cover when it comes to having people, human resources, human potential, ready to share this knowledge. So this was not very mature, was not very complete. And then Matrix came. The Matrix came a couple of years ago, and as Marina was explaining, it's a very generic, simple tool, even though complicated technically, but very simple when it comes to ticking answers, because the only things people have to tick there is yes, no, high, medium, low, and it's very copious when it comes to content. So the content is very extensive there, and it actually explores and covers all the statistical areas, but not always, and not only, because there are also there's also strategic dimension, IT dimension, and this organizational dimension, which covers also like training, and not only statistical trainings, but all the other trainings, which are a very important part of capacity development activities. So we started this year, and we tried to actually measure and assess our human resources potential using the matrix. Next slide, please. So just to go back in the past, I'm not going to dwell on this, but actually everything was in time, coordinated in time, because Statistics Poland has developed kind of international relations strategy. And we have said that, like we said in 2018, that capacity development is one of the fundamental pillars of our international cooperation, international relations strategy. That's why also it was the reason for which we wanted to know how many people we have and for which parts, for which substantive matter areas they could be, I don't know, I don't want to use the word used, but they could be asked for help. So the first bank of experts, as I said, amounted to 100 experts. And I said also that the task was quite time consuming and had no structured breakdown. Next slide, please. So our principal assumption when beginning to tackle the exercise of measuring our potential using the matrix was actually determining which of the elements of this tool are not adequate from the donor perspective. So we tried to actually analyze it, and we actually, our conclusion was that we should break it down into 4 dimensions, 4 structured pillars, because people struggled at the beginning to find themselves in the plethora of these small columns, because the matrix, as you could see, is a very detailed tool. We also tried to identify areas which overlap and duplicate. And we wanted also to examine whether there are certain areas that our people are good within and they are not covered in matrix. So these were like 3 principal assumptions that we took into account when carrying on this exercise. Next slide, please. And who was covered? We didn't cover the whole national statistical system. This is an important information because statistics in Poland is pretty centralized. But of course, we have these other national authorities entitled to produce European statistics, which were this time not covered by the matrix, even though, as Marina was also saying, the matrix could be used to test the capacity of the entire statistical system. In the case of Statistics Poland, only Statistics Poland as such, so the office, the headquarters in Warsaw, counting having like departments, these are the organizational units within Statistics Poland, were tested, and 16 statistical offices in voivodeships, which are the administrative units of Poland. These are our regions, let's say. Which is also interesting, but of course, I think you know that already, that in Poland, each and every regional statistical office is responsible for a certain substantive matter area of statistics. So giving you an example of statistical office in Krakow, they are responsible for health statistics. That's why it was really important to cover their experts also with this exercise. And while being responsible for health statistics, they are of course in close touch and contact with the social statistics department of the headquarters of Statistics Poland. So this is a mutual work, but there's a lot of human talents and potential also in the regions. And we also covered our statistical computing center, because at Statistics Poland, we have a huge number of IT engineers and technicians. More than 200 persons were asked these questions. And what were actually the questions? Next slide, please. Yeah, we tested within these 4 pillars: strategic dimensions, organizational dimensions, statistical domains, so this production of statistics, and IT dimension. And the next slide, please. As you can see, the matrix is really, really detailed. You have here the example of the strategic dimension, and you can see the columns, which kind of, so it could give you a kind of a glimpse of what kind of exercise it was and of what kind of tool it is. So you can see here, organization and modernization of the NSS. Could you actually deliver services and be an expert within this domain? Strategies of development, national statistical program, coordination role, statistical law, etc., etc., etc. So it was pretty detailed. And the challenge was for the team from my department who actually delivered this exercise, who carried on this exercise, to identify the right people within the organization to be asked this question. So how did we do it, and what questions were there? Next slide, please. We did it twice. We started in March 2022 by approaching each and every department within Statistics Poland, including strategic, like the top management, and we asked them the following questions. please like familiarize yourself with this tool and place yourself in this tiny columns. But actually we proceeded through the bosses, through the directors of this department. So actually it was a letter, an email addressed to the directors, and the directors were supposed to go down and to actually decide to talk with their teams and to try to localize, to find the right people to localize, to make them localize, to make them find themselves within this column. And I must say that our first approach was not a success. And we had a lot of actually field work and a lot of interviews and phone calls and explanations, because people were a little bit confused because of the the level of granularity, if I may say, of this tool. Plus, there was a little bit reluctance, because people sometimes they didn't want to be the part of this stock-taking exercise, the part of this bank of talents, because they just assessed their talent not mature enough to be engaged in capacity development activities on international scale. So they said, okay, I am an expert within this domain, but it's too little to be an international expert and to go to a country, to a partner country. But this was their actually individual assessment. So we tried to explain them, and we did it in July 2022 with a second attempt, that it is actually not such a big deal. It's about talking about our own work with our counterparts in different countries, in partner countries. So this is the whole capacity development is all about. It's about sharing experience. So we need to a little bit to educate our people to actually fight with the kind of timidity and reluctance to be the part of the matrix. The second challenge was actually to talk to the directors, to the bosses, because sometimes the bosses couldn't find themselves in the right places of this tool. Actually, it was also very instructive to talk to the top management, because the top management and their top-down approach, and Anna can actually confirm it here, was very useful for us, very useful, because the top management has a different perspective on assessing the capacities of the teams than the teams themselves. So I got a lot of precious hints from Anna, just please approach this person, this team, because I'm sure that they are able to be part of this matrix. And in July 2022, our second approach was more successful. Plus the third thing that we did within my team, that we actually tried to say to these people, we tried to talk with them, to our experts, and say, listen, you are the part of our experts who go abroad regularly, who take part in international meetings, who are part of international teams. So the natural next steps of your activity should be actually sharing your experience with partner countries. And the result of July 2022 were pretty satisfactory. And they were like, next slide, please. You can see that in a strategic dimension, we got an information that we have 92.6% of coverage, organizational dimension 69.4%, statistical domains 65.5%, and IT dimension 86.7%. So it is pretty well. And it's tricky actually, because you can see down on my slide, on the bottom of my slide, that over 170 experts are ready to provide support, which in comparison to 100 experts from 2018 may seem not a very considerable kind of increase, right? Looking at the organization. But the very important and useful information is the percentage of coverage. It means that maybe we are not so many with these linguistic skills, training skills, interpersonal skills, and of course, knowledge to be sent abroad and be a partner engaged in partner activities within capacity development. But we are able to cover many of these domains within the matrix, which is a useful information that we are quite multidisciplinary within Statistics Poland. And it's also an information to the creators of the matrix that some of these columns could be pulled together. So we had discussed it already with Marina, and this is going to be done at the next stage. Next slide, please. And this is my last slide and final. Sorry if I slightly exceeded my amount of time. The first one the first and the second one I've already covered, and these are the technical aspects. But from the perspective and from the point of view of this workshop, of the Human Resources Management and Training workshop, I can say that the utility of this tool from the point of managing resources, drafting internal policies was high. That actually it could be an incentive when it comes to motivate experts to undertake new international activities. And it was really a solid stock-taking exercise because we combine these two approaches, a bottom-up approach and a top-down approach. And I can say like firmly that this tool has a potential to enhance better pairing of the needs with capacity possibilities of the partner countries. Thank you very much for your attention. It was a pleasure, and thank you for having us here.
Thank you very much. It was really interesting and, as you said, useful for HR experts. So, any questions, comments, remarks? Okay, so Maria.
Thank you very much for the presentation. All brand new to me. I haven't seen this before, so very interesting. It strikes me there was an amount of pain before you got to the happy outcome that you reached. If there were others in the room here today who were considering adopting the model, what would be the quick tips or the go-to recommendations that you would give us to avoid some of the pain, so to profit from your learning in order to more quickly reach the point of being able to use the tool to achieve the desired objectives?
Well, I don't know, maybe I can start, but then also Olga can join according to her experience. Well, in fact, I think that there is also a mental approach. I mean, we have disaggregated all the activities that we carry on, I mean, daily, in a way that also who are not expert in some specific file could make a question. Are we able to do it? Because this could be, I mean, the approach is also to understand where we can move and where we have, for example, to train in order to enhance our skills. So, I mean, if you want to use this in terms of human resources approach in a more broad way, I think that this could be the question. And finally, I would say that it should be an individual part. I mean, every day I want to ask to myself, I'm able to do this, maybe this, but I need some training, but also in the terms of strategy of human resources within the NSI, and therefore involving all the structure. And the structure, I mean, not only the human resource side, but also who are in the process, who are in the production, who are in the dissemination, and so on.
Olga, would you like to add?
Yes, thank you so much. Marina has covered the most important things, but I just wanted to add, like from the very practical point of view, we have decided within the task team to work a little bit and to enhance the guidelines a kind of meta information of how to approach this tool, that maybe actually given this information will avoid in the future this confusion that sometimes, of course, is based on cultural and self-perception, but sometimes it's based just on the lack of understanding of how to deal with the tool, which is new. So the works will be ongoing with the tool, and I think that the next stage, as you were saying, Maria, the next pilot or the next kind of practical usage cases of this tool can be much more much easier and much more easily digestible for the persons who actually approach this tool.
May I add something only just final? First of all, let me say that we are finalizing the matrix according also to these results from Olga, but not only, also from other countries that are partner countries that need support. Therefore, this is our main step to finalize, to take into account all the common results and so on, to adjust. I would like also to say that in my slide, maybe in the first slide, second slide, sorry, I've put also the link to the page in which you can find first the roadmap and so on, but also the matrix. So you can have a look. Please do it, because maybe can be also for us an occasion to collect some other input from outside. So thank you so much.
Let me just jump in and add that you got a very fresh piece of information about this matrix, as we have had meeting of the steering group this week on Monday and Tuesday. And it was the first time when we discussed conclusions from this exercise and also from others like Albania, for example. So what we present today is really very new and very fresh, and we already have some feedback. So we are going to develop this tool more and make it more friendly and more feasible for others to use. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Maria, we can, I think, move to summary and proposals for next year within our group.
Thanks, Anna. So everybody, we're on the clock at this point, heading in towards lunch. And the intention of this final session before lunch is to do a review of the key points of importance that have attracted most attention and interest and support in this session here today and across the wider activities of the Capabilities and Communications Group. Now, for the obvious reason that this group is a group of HR professionals, we don't intend to focus too extensively on the communications strand of activity, but just to call out, obviously, the presentation that we had a little earlier this morning from Anna and from Aideen that did look at employer branding. And obviously, that is an issue which is currently of concern for some of us and may, in the fullness of time, become a greater concern for others. So that work will reach a conclusion and there will be an output which will be commonly accessible from that work. Should you have an interest in communications type issues, it's never the wrong time to put your hand up to get involved in the work of the communications strand of the Capcom. But back to our primary purposes here in the room on the HR side of the house. So at the moment, the two primary pieces of work that are happening under the Capabilities and Communication banner with clear HR dimensions are the data ethics work on the one hand and the future of work with its various sub-strands on the other. And I'm going to try to reflect back to you what I think you have told us in the room over the last 3 days about the key areas that you find most useful, most topical, and most relevant for further development as we move forward. I'm happy to be wrong. If you disagree, if you contradict me, if you have alternative ideas, this is exactly the moment to make those points, because we hope, Anna and I, as the co-chairs of the group, to use the conclusions from this session to inform our proposals for next year's activities under the Capabilities and Communications group work. So work to continue from this year into next year. Clearly, data ethics. And Fabrizio and colleagues, you mentioned this morning in particular a focus perhaps on producing a reference book. Business ethics.
Please, not to correct you, absolutely. Just to clarify, especially business ethics as comprising data ethics, because on data ethics is coordinated, especially by the colleague from Canada,
yes.
Eric Martin. Just sorry.
No, and
just
thank you for correcting me, Fabrizio, because it's a very important distinction. Apologies. So this is a piece of work I think we're commonly agreed needs to continue. Thank you, Anna, with a productive outcome, which should be of general use for all of us. So thank you for that. A second item to roll forward from this year into next year, and I'm summarizing broadly. I think I can call it, under the banner of future of work, the maturity model. So to Pamela, you've referenced it several times. Not that we develop a model that places one country above or below another country as being a more mature statistical organization, rather a model that identifies common characteristics that as a community we believe we associate with a higher state of evolution in terms of future readiness or capacity to engage with the key business challenges that are facing us. And that this model can therefore help us to identify where we fit as organizations when measured against various dimensions of capacity, and where we can access shared resources that may help us on our journeys to move through the phases of the model. So I hope I've done a reasonable job of describing the intended future development of the future of work work strand, and that's primarily under the future job or future organization banner. Obviously, Meta Academy is a piece of work which is ongoing, and we have already from the session this week a clear idea of how it's intended to take that forwards. And the final piece of work to be continued rather than to be completely new, and I'll get to the proposed completely new from this week shortly, is reaching youth. And that's very much focused on Nardi's presentation from Monday, with a clear opportunity for us to try perhaps to identify personas, recognizing that that our audiences are not all the same, and even in the youth group they're not all the same. So we need to understand the personas, the characteristics, the passions, the objectives, the desires as future workers and as future data subjects, to try to build organizational responses or organizational offerings to these to this cohort. If I turn then to propose additional fresh or new work to go forward, one theme that seems to have come through very consistently is the particular challenge facing leaders and managers in our new blended working organizations. So perhaps that we might consider collaborating to develop profiles of ideal competency models for line managers, possibly with a very specific focus on performance management and productivity management. Now, I think it bears perhaps a discussion whether on the one hand we say profiling the ideal competency matrix for managers of the future or managers in our contemporary organizations, and separately a piece of work to focus specifically on how we measure performance and productivity in our changing work dynamic, or to bring them together. And I think Anna and I would really welcome your views on how that should go forward together. Another key point which has emerged, and I think Supriya, you in particular have called this out successively, is the requirement for enhanced analytics and metrics to assess our performance in the types of areas that we are discussing. You might speak in a moment, perhaps, if you had a magic wand, a fairy wand, to make that piece of work happen, what specific outcomes you would like from that piece of work to vision what it might give us if we were to coalesce around a piece of work on the theme of analytics and metrics. I, of course, will continue to beat my little drum for the proposal to develop a common employer branding, although I detect that we are perhaps as a broader international community at very different points along a spectrum of facing the challenge of attracting talent. Antonio, I can only dream of 17,000 applicants for my data roles. I'm in an environment where if I get 200 applicants for my data roles, I think this is nirvana, but 200 applicants might not even yield me 20 people on a statistician panel in an environment where I need multiples of that every year just to sustain my existing business model. So we are clearly at different points, but I felt I had to put the international branding out there. So in resume, I'm sorry, and just to say under the branding, if a piece of work were likely to go forward on that, clearly that would draw us in once more to a discussion on our values, the brand values we would like to represent, but how they link back to our core values as official statisticians, and the benefits, non-pecuniary, non-financial, that we can offer to employees to make us an attractive organization, not just to join, but in which to build a career. So identifying career paths and satisfying, rewarding career opportunities in NSIs. So I might pause there and defer to my co-chair, Anna, because Anna, you may have some additional comments you'd like to add.
Well, I think that you covered all necessary points, and I put the most importance in our future work next year to the line managers, this measuring productivity and performance, and also this employer branding, these three main points, and of course not forget about youth. So these are the main points. Of course we can develop them, we can divide them, we can join them, whatever. Yes, I think that we need to rethink all what happened during these 3 days within our group, and come back with proposals at November workshop, and that's it, I think.
Thank you, Anna. I'm conscious, Supriya, I teed you up to make a contribution, but I didn't give you much notice. Would you feel comfortable to say a few words perhaps on the issue of analytics and metrics?
Yeah, so thank you very much. I see it two ways. One is in the bodies of work that we're taking on, we want to make sure that we're being very outcomes focused and that we are measuring progress towards that. I think, in conferences like these, if a portion of that is spent towards, as we've been doing over the course of this conference, looking at the progress we're making towards some of those things we've identified as key themes, if we're very outcomes focused, then we're, I think, clearly articulating, our progress made towards achieving those things, right? And then on the flip side, I do want to have conferences where we're also sharing experiences and other matters. So I think that's always very, very much worthwhile. The other dimension to measurement and analytics around human resources that I think would be an important piece is we're spending a lot of time right now at Stats Can. I've been building up capacity in that shop, and we've been really building a team around this, is to leverage data in real time so that we can make good people management decisions. And that means having systems and tools in place to understand what your workforce looks like at any given time, projections for the future makeup of your workforce, and using trend analysis to help you get there. If you don't know who works for you and what they look like, it's really hard to make sure that you've got effective policies and approaches that are going to enable them, right? So I think the fact that we're in NSIs, it's time that, on the HR side, on the training side, on the measurement, that we start tapping into that type of talent, using it for our own purposes and turning it inwards. So I've been making the same pitch across government in Canada to my colleagues that are human resource heads of HR across in other entities in our public service. So I think it's true in any organization, but particularly NSIs can be leaders in that regard. Let's take the talents of our organizations and turn it inwards so that we are understanding our organizations better. So I think it's those two sort of aspects to measurement that I think would be a great element to integrate into this. One is that being outcomes driven and measuring towards that with all the themes that you've described and the work that we're doing right now. And the other is to really look at building up that capacity, sharing the knowledge, sharing the work that we're doing around understanding our workforce and leveraging analytics to do that.
Thank you, Supriya. You can sign Ireland up for that. Other contributions? What have we missed? What don't you agree with?
And sorry, Maria, just to add to, I can share an example of something in case people are like, what are you even talking about? So happy to do that next time we're convening, and then, see what the group thinks about pursuing that. So
even before next time we convene, maybe to use an example as the kernel of a proposal, an actual written proposal, Supriya, because that'll catapult us into concrete submissions for the November workshop.
I might just say that that trying to measure productivity or coming up with an algorithm to measure productivity may take the work of one whole group. I think it'll be very difficult and very different in each of the NSIs. So I would caution not to put too much into that group, because coming up with the definition of productivity will be very difficult.
I couldn't say I disagree, but certainly the conjunction between performance and productivity, I think, is worthy of attention, because the message that I took in particular is that the lack of physical visibility in some organizations as a result of the pandemic and post-pandemic organization of work is creating suspicion and a loss of trust. And I know you, Pamela, have particular passion for trust as the new currency between employers and employees. But if there is that lack of trust because of a view that performance, whatever about productivity, that performance has diminished, that creates a negative dynamic in the organization. So even if we could begin to agree on a common set of performance criteria that might then give us the basis on which to begin to build a model for assessing productivity. But I agree, productivity is very tied to the specific organizational context, and even inside organizations to specific GSB, PM or GAMSO contexts. So it's a challenge.
No, it's not so much an idea for this, but I was just reflecting a bit on activities that we took part in, and there was one that struck me. So some years back, 6-7 years ago, there was we had a similar workshop like this in the Netherlands, and then they invited me for a project that I did between the technical university and the statistical offices. And they put people from the university together with people from the stats office, but the people from the statistics office, they were often people in a dead end that were out of ideas, that were not motivated anymore. They were mostly assigned, so not on their own account. So it was a project where they did a camp on big data. So they were all put together without prior knowledge about big data, without prior knowledge about most of them of Python. Some had some R experiences. So they all put them together. Some were not motivated. They said, why am I here and stuff. So in a week, they all got a crash course in Python. They got a crash course in all these tools used for big data, so IT, so very technical. These were not data analysts. These were just statistician methodologies and stuff. And within that week, they all learned Python. They learned how to apply R. They learned these big data techniques. They had to choose for a data set, a big data set. They had to choose an analysis they would do. They had to compare it with traditional ways of getting the data. They had to prepare a presentation. So what I was thinking, if we also have to look a bit more at ad hoc, innovative or whatever exercises, just putting people on the block. So if you put people on the block that are not motivated in your office and they don't have any data analytics skills, if you put them on the block, if they're smart, they will develop it even in a very, very short period. So you could see that people who had never worked with Python, they were of course savvy because they were programmers or they were statisticians, but they acquired very fast the tools, the knowledge you need of the people we want to recruit from data science. So the knowledge and the capacity might already be in the office. And there were also people that were absolutely not motivated. They were like the ones they could miss in their team, they sent there. So in one exercise, you could see all the elements of getting the capabilities you need, and you can't get outside, but you just create them inside. You had this unmotivated staff that got immediately motivated because they saw they could do something. And you made the link with the universities, so the universities also see what you could do at the stats office and what type of people work in the stats office. So all the things we discussed here in one exercise, you got all of it together. So we also maybe also have to think more at innovative ways of not so structured, but this type of just putting our staff in a program that they might become a data scientist, so we don't even have to get them from outside. And it might be the staff we think are the ones that are not responsive, that are at home, didn't perform, that are not performing in the office, but maybe if you put them in this situation, they suddenly start to perform. So maybe that type of, it's difficult to put in an activity or something, but we have to think maybe a bit more out of the box and challenge people more, and have more trust in what capacities we have, even with those we feel that are not performing well. Because if you put them in a certain situation, they might suddenly be fine and perform. So.
As you were talking about that, the term to describe it that came to my mind first was a boot camp. And I thought, yeah, but boot camps sound like a good idea. And then I'm thinking, if it's the least motivated, least dynamic members of our teams who are putting in that environment, they might think of it as a chain gang rather than a boot camp. But but they loved it. Well, this is great. If experience shows that they responded, then that's definitely something to add to the catalogue of initiatives to consider. Anybody else have any comments? Rodrigo.
Thank you. Just like Teke, another general comment for future events. And some of the events I have attended in the past, we usually present some of the best practices we did in our institutions or some of our failures, but it's mostly experiences from the past. What I'm thinking is maybe a future session could be held about some current projects we can have so that other countries and institutions can participate like in real time. For example, I'm thinking about this strategy or project so that we can be open to recommendations for future objects. So feedback could be, worthy because we're going to use it for the future or for the projects we are working on, and not only having feedback on something that it's already on the past, even though it might be, really positive for some other countries that experience, so that we can use and leverage from other countries' experience or knowledge for future events. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Any other contributions, or are people's tummies telling them it's time for lunch? So if there are no further contributions, I'll hand back then to Anna and to Taike, I believe, who are going to... and Elena.
Okay, so thank you very much. So I think that we are almost at the end of our workshop. This is time for closing remarks. From my side, as the chair of the whole workshop, I would like to thank everybody for your participations, to presenters, for your comments, remarks, which are and will be very useful for us for our future work, but also for you, yes, because as it was said, I think during the first day, we really want that somebody else from this audience will join us to support this work for the purpose of us, for everybody, because when we join efforts, it's the outcome is always the better than we do things separately. Yes, so this is from my side, and of course I think that Taka and Elena would like also to add, and of course many thanks to EFTA for organizing, hosting, and whatever. Thank you.
Yeah, although for many of you, it's not the end of the workshop, it's still formally the end of the one part of the workshop. So we do a thank you now, but we have to repeat it again later today for a specific group. But yeah, yeah. So I think it was
but
a very
sorry, as I have to leave a little bit
yeah, yeah,
earlier,
yeah,
that's why
yeah.
I
No,
I
of
did
course.
it right
no,
now.
but I mean, this is the end of the general part of the workshop. Yeah, so I think it was a very good workshop. So the style is very different from other expert meetings that OECD, EFTA, and UNECE is often organizing. I mean, we in the HSD must have more this style because it's all about also jointly deciding what we're going to do, sharing what we have done, getting input into what we are going to do. So the setup is with a lot of discussion that you have seen here. So yeah, thanks for all of you that came here with presentations and that shared your experiences, especially also in the fantastic failure. It's very good to see that everybody's happy to share their failures and especially then how they learn from it, of course, because it's a fantastic failure in the end. And also there was a lot of discussion and involvement of all of you. So thanks a lot for being engaged. In the beginning, it was maybe only Ireland, but very soon it was all of you. So that is very good because that's the only way to move forward. We also had a lot of bilateral already exchanges. Oh, can you send me this? Can you share this with me? So that is also one of the main purposes of this workshop, that you know each other, that you just ask somebody, oh, that's interesting material, can I have it? And that you then get it. So it's not just what we discuss, it's also all these side discussions and the side agreements you make that are really relevant here. So thanks for all of that, for being willing to share and also for asking others. That's also good you do. So then, of course, the thank you to all that made this all happen. Of course, from our side, we have Gerald, and in the background, you didn't see her, but she was still sending emails and stuff in the preparation, Tatiana. So thanks a lot to her. I'm sitting in the front here, but they're doing all the work and all the thinking. And then, of course, our colleagues from EFTA. Elena cannot thank herself, of course, but I think we can definitely thank her all with a big applause for doing all the... Of course, our colleagues, Bragi, Marius, Yao, and Alexander, they were also very much present. And in the background, making sure that the interpretation worked, that all the microphones worked, that the room was cleaned up again every day and stuff. And then, of course, yeah, we couldn't never ever have done this, especially with the many guests from the ECA region, without the interpretation. So also Tatiana and Sergey, I know I have to take another course in how to slow down and speak slowly when there is interpretation, but yeah, thanks a lot to you for making this possible. And yeah, big applause for the interpreters. And then, of course, in the end, I hope to see many of you back in the work we're doing. So if you're interested, we have already made some more promotion in the beginning. If you're interested in the work, any knowledge is welcome, any collaboration is welcome. And as we said before, if you join, you jointly determine what we are doing. So you don't jump on a bandwagon with something that is going on and you have to do what they decided upon. No, you steer it in your way as well and what is useful for you. So it's not just helping others, it's also helping yourself. So if you are interested, just contact us, and yeah, you're very much welcome. And then yeah, I think that is from my side. And then finally, Elena will give some thank yous. And
thanks, Take. I'm not a person working in HR, but let me tell you that it's been a great pleasure for me to work with all of you and for being here today. And I learned a lot. I listened a lot. I hope it has been really beneficial for you and for the future of your work. I think I can speak really from EFTA and say that has been a pleasure, a big pleasure to host this event here in the EFTA House. I hope to see this event happening again in this venue, and I hope you have a great stay and you have a great experience here. I say my thanks part is to colleagues to UNECE, Gerald, Take, and Tatiana, that is online, but she did an amazing work. We are working on this since a lot of months, and I think we can be really saying that we are really happy to what happened, what we have seen, and the success of this event. A lot of thanks also to all the speakers and organizers, on all of you. You've been amazing. Thanks to Alexander, thanks to other colleagues in EFTA. A big thanks. It doesn't look like, but Brai, my colleague, did something amazing. He's not an IT guy and did amazing things. And last but not least, yes, in the afternoon, we have this special session for EFTA partner countries. It's a small group, but this doesn't mean that it's less relevant for your work and your interest. We can all learn from each other and from our experiences. As always, there is lunch ready. And for those that have to leave or are interested, there are also some boxes for you to take food with you. And I think that's all from my side as well. And I hope to see you all in the future. And thanks to all of you. Sorry, last but not least, also I bring regards also from the EFTA Statistical Office Director, Michel Di Pietro. He's really busy these days because he has just been appointed. He's starting in August, but he promised to connect in the afternoon. So I hope you will meet him in the afternoon online. Thank you.
Okay, so once more, thank you very much, and we will meet again at 2 o'clock.
One slight change. Yesterday I've been asked for finishing the session earlier. I propose to start even a bit earlier and maybe have just 1 hour of lunch break so we can then, okay, so 1:30 here. What?